Welcome back to part 2 of our local election coverage. If you stuck with us for the first part, you will have been with us for the better part of 8 hours. We saw a fair few results coming in. We've had just over half of the councils declared so far. It's looking like a good night for the Lib Dems. We can say that much at least so far. Good night for the Lib Dems. An awful night for UKIP, but that much seemed to be fairly expected. The Greens are up a little bit, so that'll be something they're pleased about. The Tories at present are only slightly up in terms of seats, and Labour's only a little bit ahead of them as well. I'm anticipating the Tories are going to drop, Labour are going to rise over the course of the next little while. And the others, everyone else who isn't them, are currently up 11 as well. As far as the council sit net, where -1 Labour council, -1 Conservative council, +1 Lib Dem council, and +1 no overall control, although we've had a bit of movement amongst all of that as well. And let me just have a quick refresh just to see what the latest results are. I'll be sharing that on the screen with you guys shortly. Let me move that webcam down a little bit. So if I look a little bit tired, hey ho, that's because I've been here for quite a while. I don't even need this light anymore. I'm starting to get some daylight coming in through that window to the side. We've got Shafted in the side chat saying, hey, how's it going? We're at 87 out of 150, he says. Crikey, depending on your sources, mine's telling me 91 out of 150, but I think I saw one on Twitter that said something more similar to that anyway. Let's bring you guys up to speed with where we're at anyway. I'll give this one, I'll share the screen again. Right, so here we are. Good old BBC election tracker back once more. I'll give that the latest refresh. Now, I've been keeping a close eye on the results we've been getting in Barnet, which has been on this website here. Where are we at? West Hendon next. That one's going to be interesting. Could the Tories take it from Labour? A few years ago, that would have been a ridiculous thing to suggest, but now it's plausible. Certainly in Barnet so far, a seat that I thought Labour had a decent chance of taking. Actually, the Conservatives seem to have a little bit more traction than I thought before. So perhaps the Tories may well end up keeping it. It's presently, I think, in no overall control. As things currently stand, I think they're on track to take it. So Tories are going to have to, not the Tories, Labour are going to have to win some seats in Barnet somewhere. Oh, nice to be back. Steve Thompson says, morning, Captain. Elvin Archer, Subterranean Music, you guys are all back. Man, I was only gone for like 10 minutes, but it feels like I'm back after something of a break, being on the election stream part 2. So we are going to be spending this morning keeping a close eye on the BBC News page, as we were for most of part 1 for that matter as well. The number of Kipper losses has ticked upwards, 89 now, only 11 away from the target we'd set ourselves. Let's see, the Conservative gains, they're on to 5 now, so we seem to be getting closer to that point where that's going to flip over into the negatives as well, but how soon until that happens, that's probably a tricky one. Lee Hannum says, I'm getting ready to go to work. Well, I hope this is interesting enough to be listening to in the background there. I feel like I'm at work at the moment. Although, to be fair, this is, if I was going to be paid for anything, this is probably going to be top of my list. I'll check. Nothing new from the Barnet site at the moment. I'll bring up Britain Elects on Twitter, because they're usually quite good at bringing us new things fairly quickly. We've got the Hale result from Barnet, but that's from half an hour ago, so nothing too new to report on there either, for that matter. But we'll be keeping you posted nonetheless. Subterranean Music says, where realistically do you think Labour will finish today? Originally, I'd anticipated them possibly being like 100 councillors up, at least 100 councillors up when all was said and done by the end of today. But I feel that might be a bit ambitious for them now. I don't know. I think that they might end up up one council and maybe up, I don't know, 50 councillors altogether, maybe 60, something like that. I think that's where they're going to end up finishing up, like net. But we'll wait and see, won't we? There's been a few surprises. There's been a fair bit of stuff happening, which is like pretty much what I'd expected, but certainly a few surprises along the way as well, which is exactly what you want in an election, I suppose. Jafafa's back as well, back just to listen, got to rest the eyes. That's fair enough. I'll try and make sure that when I'm refreshing, if there's anything changing, I'll sort of explain what's going on as well, for that matter, then. Scott Bauer asks, how does this relate to general election voting intention? That's a fine question, because obviously the locals are a bit of a different kettle of fish. I think there was one bit of analysis I read not too long ago that said something like the fact that in some areas we're seeing the Tories continuing to make gains in kind of like, rural and post-industrial areas, where Labour are continuing to do better in the like inner cities. Neither of them are really reaching out beyond their current bases very well. They're not really gaining awfully well in territory that they wouldn't otherwise feel comfortable with, or something like that. Says that as far as seats go in elections, geographically where's likely to be voting where, it doesn't look like we'll see that much of a shift. You might see like Labour votes stacking up higher in certain cities or something, and similar stuff for the Tories in other areas, but not an awful lot of seats flipping. So we're kind of getting a mixed picture from this set of locals so far. Obviously UKIP's collapsed, but UKIP collapsed at the last election anyway, so we don't need to infer anything from that. I think partly these locals are kind of telling us what we've already heard from the general election last year, and partly they're telling us that basically, depending on where you are in the country, Labour place is going to be staying Labour, Tory place is going to be staying Tory. I don't know. I think long term, it's going to be hard for either of the two main parties to break out big enough to get themselves any big majorities in a general election. It's going to continue being fairly tight, with the possibility of hung parliaments. I think, if anything, maybe that's what we can infer. Raja says, guys, can you tell me who's going to win? The Lib Dems. I think the Lib Dems are going to come out of this better than anyone else, to be honest. Labour will come out with most seats, and I think they'll come out with a net increase of seats. So will they come out with a net increase of councils? Oh, that's a slightly trickier one. I think they will. So I guess you could say Labour. I guess you could say the Lib Dems. Probably not the Tories or UKIP, or the Greens for that matter either. Well, this is interesting. This is from Michael. Sky News offering hypothetical House of Commons projections based on where we're at now. Oh, okay then. Well, so can I zoom in on that at all? That's not helping, is it? Right. So this is from Sky News. This is if the local elections were a general election. I assume that's what the prediction is. This is how it pan out. So the Conservatives, I think that's a lower yield for the Conservatives than in 2017. Labour, I think Labour are roughly on the same there as they were. I think so. SNP seems to be roughly the same as well. Lib Dems seem to be up a bit, for that matter. So let me think. I mean, this is obviously just an exercise in fun, because it really doesn't mean anything for the next election, because God knows when it's going to be. But just for the hell of it, let's see. Add the SNP onto Labour. Add the Lib Dems onto the SNP. Oh, no. That's trouble, isn't it? You can't quite get a majority that way. Add the Conservatives onto the Lib Dems. Well, yeah, you could get over the line. All right, yeah. If the Lib Dems wanted to work with the Tories again, maybe they could do it. I think the gist to take away here is that it's like I was just saying a moment ago. Neither of the two main parties seem to be in the position at the moment in this political current political landscape to break out big enough to get themselves a big majority in a general. And that projection appears to support that. Scott Bauer says, are there more urban seats than rural? In these local elections, yes, I believe so. Or certainly there's a higher density of urban places being polled than there tend to be in other local elections. That's probably a better thing to say. Right, so there we have it. Soak that in there, guys. I'm going to be taking that one away. We'll be having a look to see if we've got any new results here. Well, a bit of a change. Tories were down to 5 gains, back up to 8 gains again. Oh, the Kippers, 91 losses there. But other than that, things are looking pretty samey. And obviously, we haven't had any big announcements like any new councils flipping or anything along those lines yet. Any new results in London here we haven't covered before? +2 to Labour, -2 Conservatives. Oh, thank you for that, Michael. I was just posted the 2017 general election results. So, oh, well, it makes sense why the SNP is on the same amount as they were before, because obviously there wasn't a poll in Scotland today. So the projection had put them on the same amount. But Labour then down 1, the Conservatives down 12, the Lib Dems up 14. Is that right? The Lib Dems up 14. Yeah. That would be the makeup then. So hung Parliament from hell, basically. Yeah. Oh, we've got a new tweet from Britain Alex. Oh, West Hendon and Barnet result. Conservatives +10%, Labour stagnant, Greens stagnant, Lib Dems stagnant, basically. Conservatives gain ×3 from Labour. Christ, is that right? Conservative gain ×3, yeah, it must be. So they've gained all three of the councillors elected to that particular ward. I guess that's what it's telling us. If that's the case, guys, then I'm not entirely sure where Labour are going to be making these gains in Barnet needed in order to win Barnet. I think we might have to be working on the assumption now that the Tories are going to hold Barnet and indeed increase their majority on Barnet as well. Well, gain a majority and then increase that majority. That much makes sense. There we are from Britain Alex. Tories have made 4 gains from Labour in Barnet so far. Yep, so it's looking like that one's going to be going a certain way now. I could be wrong. Obviously, I think we've only got a small amount of wards that have been done so far. But yeah, Mill Hill. Is Mill Hill in Barnet as well? Perhaps, I'm assuming it might be. Yeah, I think Barnet's going to be going blue. It was blue in 2014. It slips into no overall control. It's going to be heading back to blue. I no longer think that Labour, from what I'm seeing at the moment at least, I no longer think Labour seem to have a chance of taking Barnet at the moment, not from the gains the Tories have had off them so far. And it would need to be something fairly substantial to take those back from the Tories and still win the 1 or 2 extra that they need. Not impossible, but what we're seeing so far doesn't seem to bear that to be the case. Which means, now this is interesting. I don't know whether, I'll give this a quick refresh. I don't know whether that would then be counted, Barnet, whether that would be counted as 1 less no overall control, because there was no overall control before. Oh no, here we are. Changes compared with 2014. So I guess then that will be a conservative, it'll count as a conservative hold then. I guess so. Either that or a transition from no overall control. But yeah, that's a bit disappointing for Labour. Barnet was a very easy to gain one there, and they won't have managed it. And it's a shame because they were right on the margin of having the number of councillors needed, considering they've made such, they made much better gains for themselves in places like Westminster or Wandsworth. But obviously they needed to gain way more councillors to be able to make an impact there. Where in London still stands as a place where Labour could gain themselves a council. The last one would have to be Tower Hamlets. That was another one that I predicted Labour would win. I'd only predicted Labour would be taking 2 in London. One of them now doesn't appear to pan out, so Tower Hamlets might be that last one to keep an eye on, I suppose. A new party is needed, says Drew. There's a few people who have had that idea recently, it seems. Trying to set themselves up a new party. You know what? Why not just zoom in on this? It'll be much easier for everyone to see, won't it? Oh, there we are. Things staying roughly the same again. So yeah, that's my assessment of things. I think Barnet is probably going to be blue, and then let me think. Depending on how it's counted, either it will be -1 still for the Conservatives, or it'll be 0. Yeah, I think the way things are looking at the moment, the biggest winners of today are going to be the Liberal Democrats. I think it seems rather likely to me that the Lib Dems, whenever the results do come in, are going to be taking Kingston upon Thames, which will then mean they will have had 2 council gains in London, which will be something to be rather pleased about. That will be the biggest gains for any one party in London by the looks of it. So I think overall these are going to be a rather mixed set of local elections. Horrible for UKIP, not great for the Tories, not really great for Labour either. Possibly they might move themselves into a place where they're able to say, you know, with some certainty, well, at least we did better than the Tories. At least we, you know, gained more councils, or didn't lose as many councils as the Tories, or gained more councillors or something. But certainly this isn't going to be any, you know, amazing success story for Labour. Probably what they'll be able to take solace in is that they've done better than the Tories did, even if it's not an amazing result in itself, as I say. And this isn't something I expected I'd be saying, certainly, but it appears to be probably a better night for the Lib Dems. Not a runaway success, not grabbing, like, you know, councillors and councils left, right and centre or anything like that, but out of everyone, they seem to be the party that's made the most gains and sort of look safe of holding on to them at the moment. So that's what we got, and the Greens as well. You know, considering the Greens have started off from a very low base, improving by 6 so far, it'll probably be more when all is said and done. That's not too bad in itself. But again, nothing much to write home about. The UKIP collapse it was anticipated by nearly everyone, really. So that in itself probably won't be too much of a surprise either. We've still got Angel's ward to find out about. Annabelle's running in Runnymede, and as is her dad, and we won't be finding that out until later on in the day anyway. Left Gabriel says, what number can be considered great for Labour? Oh, great, I don't know. Great would have probably been gaining more than 2 or 3 councils and gaining more than, I don't know, 100 to 200 seats net. That probably would have like been the definition of like a good moving on to great result for Labour. I think the result for them at this point is going to be all right, passable, adequate, something along those lines. You know, like a C plus, or a B minus, and the Tories will get like a D or something. But 95 of 150 councils in there. Have we got anything new to show for it? Let's have a look at Britain elects. Anything new? Or here yet? Nope, nothing since Mill Hill went going Tory. Drew says, are you continuing your membership of Labour Swiss? Yeah, I am for the time being. I still hold a clear preference to see Corbyn in government over virtually any, well, over any Conservative option. And I'd sooner see a Corbyn-led Labour government than one led by the right of Labour. And for as long as that looks like a possibility and something that my support can somehow contribute to, then it's probably worthwhile me staying in the party and, you know, offering up £2 a month or whatever it is. You know, there's improvement they can make on their Brexit position, but I understand that Labour is chock full of Remainers, so how much can I ask from them, really? Don't go full Lib Dem. That's the best I can expect as a Brexiteer myself. Nothing new to report there. Elvin Archer, this is a bit earlier on, says, trouble is a new party will just split the anti-Tory vote and divide and rule. Always Tory game plan. I mean, that's the problem. Not to mention that new parties really tend to struggle to gain traction. It's rare that a new party will be launched and then be a massive success from the off. When it does happen, it's you know, something remarkable unto itself. I think you're right. I think certainly if we're talking about like a new party of the left or a new party of the centre for that matter, whichever way you want to cut it, it will probably end up with a kind of like an SDP 1980s scenario where whatever the main parties are on the left or the centre left or whatever kind of eat enough of each other's support to keep the Conservatives in, which is probably not really what the voters for either party would be desiring at the end of the day. George Hayes says, wow, London hasn't been the lifebuoy we were hoping for. It's I mean, it stopped us from drowning. It stopped us from drowning. It just hasn't tugged us ashore, you know. That's one way to put it. But you're right. Like, I thought that I was being, you know, fairly, no pun intended, conservative for my predictions with Labour. You know, I felt I was not expecting too much from them. And yet, what I was expecting possibly could still have been a little bit too much. They'd not quite done as good as even what I thought they'd do. And I kind of played down my expectations a little bit. But I mean, for me personally, at least, kind of like as a Labour supporter, I will take solace if they end up with a net gain of councillors and the Tories end up with a net loss. If they end up with a neutral or net plus of councils and the Tories end up with neutral or a loss, you know. Is that moving the goalposts? Oh yeah, it's definitely moving the goalposts at this point, compared to how much I thought they'd achieve. But you know, I think just an adequate, respectable, ever so slightly moving forwards local election result is probably the best we hope from Labour at the moment. I think it's the, as I say, I think it's the Lib Dems who have the most to celebrate about today. I mean, I say all of that. We've still only had 95 of 150 councils in. We've still got just over a third of the remaining councils out there left to give us some results. It could churn up a few interesting surprises. We've had, I don't know, I can't list them off the top of my head. We've had at least a few councils changing control tonight so far. I imagine we're still going to be getting a fair few more as well. So the end results that we get could well still look a little, you know, they could still end up looking a fair bit different from what we've got at present. But certainly, I don't think they'll be looking drastically different from what we have right now. That probably makes sense. George Hay says, didn't see us getting so battered in places like the Midlands. Big wake-up call surely on Brexit and immigration. Well, that's the thing. Some of the analysis I've heard is saying that the Tories have done better in places that voted leave. Generally, of course. They've done better in places that voted leave. Labour's done better in places that voted remain. But again, it's that tightrope, isn't it? From my own perspective, of course, I would like to see Labour do more on those kind of issues. I think they, for my own sensibilities, have the wrong stance on them. However, as a party, if they move too far away from what the Remainers are after, you know, I mean, we know that, like, you know, the ABTV, FBPE, Ramona types are already livid that they're even leaving the single market. And Labour's vision of Brexit is kind of half Brexit, half a washout anyway. So to move any further in either direction is really going to damage them. If they move further to pursue Brexit, they're going to lose all those Remainers. Well, some of them at least, certainly. I mean, we've seen the Lib Dems making a few gains at least. So it's hard to say. I mean, I don't know. Well, I know what I personally do because I know what my political preferences are. But if I'm talking about what's expedient to win elections as a party, I'm not sure what I'd do. Maybe their current strategy is actually the best one. Maybe for all we know, if they went further down either the Remain or the Leave side of the argument, they would actually lose greater numbers of seats than they presently are straddling this line in the middle. Possibly, but it's impossible to be able to say that with any certainty. It's a tricky one. I don't know. But things have been staying pretty much the same here for ages. Tories in high sort of single digits, Labour in sort of, you know, certainly before when I was like, oh, they're gonna sink down and then it's going to be a net gain and all the rest of it. It's certainly taken its time to materialise, isn't it? At a much slower rate than I thought it would be. Anything new here? Nope. Anything more from Britain Elects, maybe? Nope. Apart from telling us that Barnett's not looking good for Labour. And not too much more on the seats front either. Michael says, Sky is portraying this out to be a bad election for Labour and a good one for the Conservatives. The media overhyped Labour's odds to begin with. The only reason the cons aren't in negatives at the moment is thanks to UKIP. Well, I mean, it's certainly true what you say about UKIP. I mean, again, it kind of depends on your parameters, doesn't it? There's the case being made where they go, oh, but, you know, surely an opposition party with a government this bad, they must be doing better than they're doing at present. But then again, we've got a really different and weird political landscape at the moment. We're in territory politically that we're not used to at the moment. We're kind of like back to two-party politics, but then again, we're not. It's like the two main parties are both popular, but neither of them are popular enough for the government, for the public to say, we want to give either of you a big majority. I think Brexit plays a big factor until that's likely to go away as well. I think, I mean, obviously I haven't been watching the Sky News coverage for the, you know, I haven't been watching it with the audio on, I haven't been watching that much of it with the audio off, but depending on what their coverage is saying, if they're trying to paint the elections overall as a victory for the Conservatives, I think, well, that's you know, wait till a few more results are in, because if overall they've lost seats and they've lost councils, then I don't think you can describe that objectively as a victory. If they're trying to put it in wider political terms to go, well, it could have been a lot worse, then I think, I suppose so. It could have been a lot worse for the Tories. It could have been a lot better for Labour. But it could have been a lot of things. It's probably worth just looking at the results we have. Like, I'm willing to admit that the Lib Dems seem to have done pretty well. They've exceeded my expectations slightly. And the Kippers have kind of met mine perfectly, really. I thought the Kippers were going to collapse, but perhaps be left with a small amount. I'll give that one another refresh anyway. Oh, there we are. A few more in again. Still not much to talk about here. Any more from Britain Elects? Nope. And no more from, it seems like new results from Barnet have basically dried up for us at the moment as well. So there's not an awful lot to talk about right now until we get some more new results in. It was also busy a few hours ago, wouldn't it? You think the more time they have to get results, the more results we'd have. But as with at least some councils, we know they're not actually going to start the count until today. So maybe all the ones doing it overnight, they're finally getting to the end of it, and there's going to be a point where other people are going to be starting it later on. M. Grimble says the BBC coverage has been ridiculously biased tonight. Well, there we are. What was I going to do? I remember now. I was going to go on cam so I could read my messages just for the sake of privacy of people on Twitter. No one had anything to say. Oh, we've got a new tweet from oh, hello. Which one's that? Richmond upon Thames? No, we've done Richmond upon Thames already, haven't we? Yeah, it's just the vote share that they're offering us here. I'll put that up anyway, just out of interest. It's Kingston that we're waiting for. Richmond upon Thames vote share, Lib Dems plus 19%. What a swing. Conservatives down 1%, Greens down 8% or so. So it seems the Greens have suffered from this, really. And then seat results, Lib Dems up 24, Conservatives minus 28, and the Greens up 4 as well. And again, that's quite interesting because the Greens have had half the vote share of Labour, yet Labour are nowhere here, and the Greens have managed to get themselves some seats. So again, must be specific to a few choice wards. But yeah, I mean, you know, take a look at that. As far as maybe that anti-Brexit tactical vote has something to it. You never know. It might have had a bit more traction than I'd anticipated. You see that there as far as the seats go, plus Lib Dem, plus Greens, minus Conservatives, Labour nowhere to be seen. It does say something, doesn't it? Oh, no more for us from the Beeb. We'll give you another chance, Sky. You got anything interesting? Yeah, got that for Kensington and Chelsea. Oh, well, absolutely riveting stuff here from Sky News. I suppose I don't have the volume on after all, but no, they're not telling us anything that we haven't already got here at the moment anyway. Still only 96 councils. Nothing more to say in Barnet. I'll go on here. See if there's much more to be said about Barnet on Twitter, maybe. Lewis Goodall says on Sky Labour should be doing better. In Barnet, turnout is up and it's swinging more Conservative. Conservatives believe they've got control of the council. Yep, that's how it's looking. Looking like Barnet's swung Conservative, higher turnout, more votes to the Tories, despite London at large heading towards Labour. I think you can pretty safely say that probably the anti-Semitism stuff has factored into this. That much makes a fair bit of sense, I suppose, considering Barnet's rather high Jewish population relative to sort of the rest of the country. The next 48 hours will see every Blairite under the sun whining about Corbyn. Yep, I think that would probably be the case. Subterranean music says probably quiet until about 9 o'clock. Oh wow! So we've got a bit of time with not very much going on, haven't we? Scott Bauer says, wait, it stands for anti-Brexit tactical vote. I thought it stood for amazing, blazing Team Varoufakis. Michael says, true, but Labour has gained 324 seats in 2014. It's difficult to hold on to those seats and gain even more. Conservatives lost that at that local election. Also, they haven't made up for that much tonight. No, that's certainly true. If you're looking in the wider context of this particular batch of seats, then certainly holding on to where you got in 2014 and even making a few improvements on it, that in itself is pretty good. But for 3 years running of local elections, which have all been in themselves broadly pretty disappointing, doesn't look amazing. But, you know, I'll take as I say, it's certain councils I want to see in. I want to see Camden. I want to see Barnet. I think Barnet's going to go blue. That much seems virtually guaranteed, but it's not. I don't know. Is it an absolute certainty? Yeah, it's probably a certainty. But there are still places where Labour can come out on top and recover to finish in a position tangibly better than that of the Conservatives. So that'll be something to be pleased about compared with their last 2 attempts at the locals. That'll be, you know, a turnaround of sorts, I guess. The Conservatives, for their part, I think they'll be. To be honest, I think given the hype about how things could have gone in London, you know, manufactured or not, up for debate, I suppose. But given how things could have gone, the Conservatives will probably be breathing a bit of a sigh of relief today. They'll be trying to big up their results, which, you know, that in itself is going to be a bit of bollocks because their results are not worth bigging up when they've in fact, well, so far at least, lost councils and well, no, they've still gained councillors, but I don't think they're going to end up that way. They can, the least they can be pleased about is that they didn't do as badly. The Tories are not going to do as badly as we thought they would, and Labour are not going to do as well as we thought they would. And the Lib Dems are going to do a bit better than we thought they would, and the Greens are going to do all right. I don't know. I still don't know how to rank the Greens. They're tricky because they're so small in terms of their presence. And UKIP collapsed. Have you seen the state of the Tories at the moment? They're effectively holding the PM hostage. Go on. Oh. Disappointment, man. I want some more councillors. Some more councils for that matter as well. See if there's much more to come in. Barnet looks like it's coming in like this, unless Labour can pull off huge gains in High Barnet and Oakley. And where are these areas? High Barnet there and Oakley there. All right, well, they're geographically connected at least. If they were going to pull something off, it would help if they were nearby. Similar mindset of voters being close to one another. But nah, I'd say this one's staying blue, to be honest. All the signs seem to be pointing that way, so I'm not sure why we should anticipate anything otherwise. Right, just for a bit of fun, given that we've got absolutely nothing going on, why don't we see what the different political parties have had to say about their results so far, eh? UKIP. Okay. Labour leader of Derby Council, which Jerry Corbyn visited twice, loses his seat to UKIP. Well, shit, that's going to be their success story for the entire thing. That's that's going to be what they've got to offer. Which that story in itself makes up approximately 50% of their total councillors at the moment anyway, but there we are. And then Suzanne Evans is quite right. There is a space for UKIP and we fill it. It's not a very big space though, is it? Congrats on a hard fight. Well, they're doing exactly what we'd expect they do, really, which is bigging up the 2 councillors that they've kept. What about the Greens? It's clear that the Greens are in the top 4 political parties. Well, I mean, you know what? There's a case to be made that they're damn right outranking UKIP now. they're a little bit behind them in the national polls, but they're doing far better than them in all of the locals that seem to be happening from my recollection. I don't know how the Lib Dems versus UKIP stand in their total amount of, like forgetting these locals, but all of the councillors in the country added together, how the Greens rank against UKIP. I'll have to look that up at some point. As far as they're in the top 4 political parties, then I don't know. If you're talking about national parties, Labour, Conservative, Lib Dem, Green, yeah, if we're going to place them ahead of UKIP, I think that's a fair enough claim to make. I could say they're in the top 4. If we're talking about, you know, relevant Westminster forces, not so much. You've got the SNP and you've got the DUP there, and they kind of both play a much bigger role than the Lib Dems. Why do I keep saying Lib Dems? Than the Greens do in Westminster. So it depends what the metric you're measuring it on is, really. You could argue they are. You could argue they're not. But there we are. They held some seats in Liverpool under intense Labour pressure. So they'll be happy about that. This is the thing. Everyone's got something good to talk about. That's the joy of spin. Labour, Conservative, Lib Dem, Green, UKIP. They've all got a nice story to tell about why actually they've done incredibly well today. I think, speaking as objectively as possible, I think the Lib Dems appear to have done better than expectations than anyone else today. Maybe, I don't know, but better than my expectations at least. So I think probably if anyone's going to be the closest to actually having something good to say about their performance and, you know, really being able to stand by it, it'll probably be the Lib Dems. And then proportionate to where they already are, the Greens, but in reality, the Greens are still pretty much nowhere, just as they were before, so it doesn't really matter that much. But as I say, with Labour and the Conservatives, Labour have not done as well as we thought they would. The Tories have not done as badly as they thought they would. But I think when all is said and done, oh, the Greens have got a new tweet. But when all is said and done, I think Labour will come out net better than the Tories will, at the very least. I'll bring back up Britain elects, and if I can remember later on, we'll have a look at a few more of the parties as well. All right, there's one. Amber Valley vote share. No UKIP. Conservatives up a fair bit. Labour a wee bit as well. 2 Labour losses to 2 Conservatives. Right, I've got a treat for you now. I swear it's been at least a few minutes since we last refreshed this page. So here we go. I see. Well, I think we've had some more seats come in, but apparently they're all holds. But there we have it. Still 96 of 150 at the moment. And nearly 10 a.m. as well. 10 a.m. Oh man, it's 7 a.m. I don't even know why I said 10 that time. Michael says, Britain elects, Tories made 4 gains from Labour and Barnett. Yep, that's how it's looking at the moment. Grimble says, Tory councillors have been suspended in the last 2 weeks for various racist bullshit, yet never a word about it on TV. Yeah, I think that's a fair point, actually. You know, I try to think what is measurably worthwhile the news covering and what isn't. And the idea of a few handfuls of councillors being suspended for something really ought not to be making, like, you know, big headlines or whatever. But when I think about it on the flip side, and I think, well, if that were Labour councillors being suspended for anti-Semitism, you know that they'd be talking about it, then yeah, there's probably a point to be made there. And I suppose what with Windrush and all, sort of any racism in the Tory ranks is probably more reason to be paying attention to it. Not quite as much of a correlated link as sort of anti-Semitism with anti-Semitism, but Windrush with racism is similar enough. Oh, here we are. One from Frank McHawkenstein. Havering's close to being ready. A few wards had to do a recount. Is Havering the no overall control one that had a few Conservatives and a hell of a lot of independents? I think that's right. I remember that the East Havering independents and the rest of it. Yeah. Well, I'll double check here. Yeah, that's the one. I remember it well. So this one's like all over the place at the moment. You got the Conservatives, the East Havering Residents Association, the Havering Residents Association, which from now on we'll be referring to as the West Havering Residents Association. 6 kiffers, so I doubt we'll be seeing many of them again. Some separate independent residents and a couple of Labour seats. So certainly, when we say that there's the possibility of some new Labour councillors there, I mean, there's enough people they could be taking it off of. There's plenty of room to be growing and Havering. I suppose the interesting question is, would the Tories be able to reclaim it? I didn't think so. I thought it was probably going to stay no overall control. So it'll be interesting to see how it pans out. But I say that it's worthy adding the caveat that I have fairly little knowledge of the interplay between the different independent residents groups here and the Conservatives and all the rest of it. So whatever's going on the ground in there, it's hard to know much about. But I've been looking forward to this one coming in. I've kind of I'd forgotten about it though, but I had been keen to see what would happen. Frank says, I hope we form a good opposition in Havering. Yeah, but here's the question. If the East Havering residents have sided with the Tories, then we need to make a strong opposition, one assumes, with the West Havering residents. Little bit of East Side, West Side rivalry, maybe. Yeah, but I'm hoping for the same. I'm hoping we'll make some gains there. Mixed night for the Conservatives and Labour as voting counting continues. You're damn right there. Mixed is definitely the word. We've had that one already. Give this one a refresh. Oh, there we are. Looks like we've had one Labour councillor gain off the Tories again. They're back down onto 7. I said I was going to go looking at some of the other parties, didn't I? Right, let's see what Labour's got to say about things then. Labour gained Plymouth from 3 hours ago. Oh, crikey. Well, they've been quiet. 9 hours, 3 hours. I guess there's probably a lot of smaller accounts like try Momentum. No, they last tweeted 12 hours ago. Well, this is very interesting. Official accounts from Labour seem to be rather quiet. Labour press team, maybe? Nope. Labour politicians? Nope. No, looks like they've all gone to bed for the night. Not an awful lot to say. How about the Conservatives? Kensington and Chelsea Conservative hold. Westminster Conservative hold. Oh, well, they've been on this. Yeah, anywhere that they've held or gained, they've got a fair bit to say there. Why are you typing in all caps? Because this caps lock button is kind of, you can't see the keyboard I've got in front of me, but it's kind of, the buttons are very stuck. The caps button is very reluctant to switch on and off. Is it triggering people out there watching the fact I'm typing in all caps? Because the results come up all the same. I can try and avoid doing that if you'd like. I hadn't thought it would be a problem really. I hadn't even noticed I was doing it, to be honest. Oh no, it's just you. Robert, sorry, I was reading your comment and I thought it was like a couple of people. I'm that tired at the moment. Anyway, back up here. Anything new? Yeah, the numbers have changed, but the change in the numbers hasn't. Maybe that's it. I don't know. Oh, here we go. We've got something new here. Adam Langleben, candidate for West Hendon, who lost the election by only 117 votes, said the local Labour Party has been betrayed by the National Party. Because the Labour Party has a serious issue of anti-Semitism, I'm a proud Jewish member of the Labour Party, and as a Jew in the Labour movement, I have worked with others to educate people on modern anti-Semitism and expel those who hold anti-Semitic views. The people of West Hendon this morning were denied a Labour council. That's my life mission. It's my life mission to fix that. Certainly, as I say, I think it's very clear at this point that that appears to have had a big effect on Barnet. Because if it were any other council with a different demographic makeup, I feel it would have flipped Conservative to Labour much. Well, first of all, it would have flipped, but also much easier. Kensington staying blue, Labour gain 1 seat. One seat on Kensington and Chelsea. Do we know about any of the rest of the movement in Kensington and Chelsea? Like whether the Lib Dems have made any gains, or is that literally the only change we've had there? Because that's interesting. Oh, hang on a minute. Here we go. Lowercase. BBC feed. Plymouth, very close in Barnet. Oh, here we are. There's a confirmation that the Conservatives have held on to Kensington and Chelsea with the loss of just 1 seat to Labour. Cheers for that. Yeah, there we have it. Wow. So no movement in Kensington and Chelsea then, basically. Virtually static. Very close in Barnet. In Barnet, with 2/3 of the results back, Labour and Conservatives have 21 seats each, but crucially, the Tories have taken 4 seats off of Labour. Yeah. So there's seats left to come that the Tories are expected to hold, or are likely to hold at least, and it's unlikely Labour will take that off of them. Labour will get the basics right for Plymouth, says MP. Plymouth, anti-Semitism. And not too much more there anyway. So we got can we have a look at that now? Yeah, there we are. Wow. One ward flips in Kensington and Chelsea. Very few changes there then. Anywhere else to look at? Let's see. I think I've been on most of these already. M. Grimble says, props to Sky. In fairness, I think over the last month, they've actually been way less biased than usual because they want that merger to go through and then they'll turn into Fox News. I'll give this another refresh and then we'll look at anything more from the BBC feed either. Labour survived scare to hold on in Hull. The party lost 7 seats to the Liberal Democrats in the all-out city council election. Tories hold gold as green with 3 more councillors elected. Oh, no more surprises. As I say, Barnett's staying blue at this point. Oh, there we are. It's amazing at this point. The most interesting changes are just like a few digits moving the dial here. So yeah, when they report it as being a very mixed set of results, they're really not wrong, are they? It looks like most of our new results have certainly dried up here. Oh man, there are people just waking up at the moment. 7 a.m. 33% is a pretty shocking turnout for local elections. Where are we? So, with the absence of anything new coming in at the moment, and the moment we have any significant change of any sort, I'll let you know. That includes a single councillor flipping from one side to the other. We'll jump straight back onto that screen share. So Havering was supposed to be coming up soon. Somebody had said that'll be interesting because obviously there's quite a mixed bag there on that council. Barnet, I'd quite like that one to come in just so it's over with, just so we know what's happened there. And as far as the overall results go, I don't know. As I say, we've still got over 50 councils to have to report in at the moment. So we've got much further to go in terms of the results. I think, let me check something. I think it says it in the description of this video. That's the number of seats being defended at least. We do Let me add those up quickly. Okay. Yeah, I think we've got about a third of seats left to come in as well. I think that's correct. Yeah, roughly about a third of councils, a third of seats. That much seems to make sense. So I'm assuming that what we've got left that's going to come in is going to broadly reflect the pattern of what we've had in already. Kind of, 2/3 is sort of enough to go on to get a rough gist of things, but there will be slight differences in movement. There may still be one or two councils here or there that might move. There may still be, will the Tories dip into net losses of seats? I still think they probably will. Will they either bump up some of their councillor gains? Perhaps so. But it's difficult to say. It's difficult to say. Certainly, I don't think we're going to get any sudden drastic boost for Labour or any sudden heavy, really heavy Tory losses in places if it's following the overall pattern we've been seeing here so far. So my predictions now for net seat gains and losses at the moment: UKIP about 120 seat losses. The Greens, I don't know, maybe 10 seats gains. The Lib Dems, maybe 60 seat gains. Conservatives finishing maybe with a net, I can't say on that, maybe like minus 20 or 30, something like that. And Labour maybe up 40 or 50, something like that maybe. Frank McHawkinstone says, Havering results being announced now, watching a guy read them out. Awesome. Right. I'll hop back onto Twitter then for Havering. There's one from 3 minutes ago that says UKIP wiped from Havering Council. There's some of the wards that we're getting back here in Havering. Let's see. Yeah, well, looks like the Kippers have been wiped. Liam Coleman on Twitter at the scene. Thank you. Oh, but which Liam Coleman? This one? No, I'm gonna hazard a guess it's not this Liam Coleman. Maybe a different one. Havering under no overall control, says Shafted. Oh, all right. Hang on a minute. Maybe the Beeve has word. Well, if that's the case, if Havering's held onto that. Oh, hang on a minute. I'm not even screen sharing with you at the moment, am I? There we are. All right. Let's stick Britain Alex on there. Maybe Sky News or something live from Havering. Oh, thank you. Someone's given me the Twitter handle I'm looking for there. Right. Well, I've just listened to some of that. That was from 13 minutes ago, though. But cheers for that. I'll keep that as open as a tab anyway. Um, so, are we? Is anyone hearing any more from Havering from anything they're watching at the moment that we've heard? Whether it's remained no overall control. Um, Aaron Beniston says, "Does anyone know how Angels did?" We're not going to know that until a bit later on. Her count isn't going to be happening until a bit later in the morning, so the information's not out there just yet. But once we do know about it, we'll be letting you know. No control from what I've seen. Yeah. So it seems like no overall control sounds on the cards for Havering. I've got a notification there at least. Oh, hang on a minute. What's this? More about Barnet. Tories take Brunswick Park, but Labour keep one seat. Tories take Brunswick Park, but Labour keep one seat. Wow. Okay. So continued gains for the Tories in Barnet by the sounds of it. Oh, another follower. Hello there. All right, we'll keep an eye on Britain elects for this one. Nope, same old, same old. Oh man. Frank says Labour had a lot of promises in South Havering, but objective was stronger opposition than actually swinging it. Oh, hang on a minute. I think we've got some new ones here. This is just a personal point of interest, but the places from down in Essex, I'm always interested to check out because that's where I grew up anyway. Southend-on-Sea, how do things go? Plus Tories, Labour, Independent down, UKIP annihilated. Tories keep overall control. In fact, they're built on it for that matter. All right, there we are. Well, satisfied my curiosity. Latest on the Beeb feed. UKIP celebrates Derby's success. Well, they will do, won't they? It's like it's the only success to talk about. Holding on to. Well, no, actually, getting rid of the Labour council leader. UKIP former deputy chairwoman Suzanne Evans has pointed to Derby as one of the party's few high points of the English local council elections. I have to say, 3 councillors in Derby, one of them actually unseating the leader of the Labour Council. It might not be UKIP's night, but my goodness me, when we do win, we win it with style. Okay, great. Lib Dems regain Richmond. Oh, this is old news. We know these already. This is just them sharing all of their written up pieces for stuff we've seen at this point. Give it a quick refresh. A few more to the Conservatives there. 97 of 150 councils. We've ticked up one. For anyone keen on keeping track of the numbers, that's the same thing as before. Nothing new from Britain elects. We'll go have a look at some of the maps, shall we? There's some new places filling in here, I think. These ones look new to me. Winchester, +2 to the Lib Dems, plus the... Oh, wow. A Conservative hold, but not by much. Check that out for size. Yeah. If one more flips, this would be a Lib Dem council at this point. That was pretty close then. They held on fairly closely there. Oh, very closely there, literally by the skin of their teeth. Basingstoke and Dean. They've held on to this one quite nicely. minus the Lib Dem. So there we go. Some Lib Dem gains in the one next door, some Lib Dem losses here. Swindon, I think we've looked at. West Oxfordshire, -5 to the Conservatives, +3 Lib Dems and Labour. Still very, very, very solid Conservative council there. Hull, Lincoln, Ipswich. There are some little ones here I haven't looked at yet. Hang on a minute, right? What was this one? Stevenage, yeah, we definitely haven't looked at that yet. -3 for Labour, +2 Conservatives, +1 Lib Dem. Yeah, I mean, looking at just plucking individual seats out of the air, it's very hard to kind of notice what overall, well, I mean, I've got a feel for what overall trends are, but it's hard for me to kind of infer it by different seats all over the place. Probably why John Curtis is pretty good at his job, pouring over it all. I'll be interested to see what his take on it is, because I'm sure he'll be doing like a lecture or sort of like a briefing on what happened with these local elections and why those things happened at some point in the future. So I'll be very interested to check that out. Nothing from Mr. Coleman. Nothing from Britain-elect. Anything new in Barnet? Nope. Right. I'll leave that aside for a little bit then. What are you guys saying in the side chat then? I think talking about the NHS. I can see that we're slowly ticking up in the viewers again. I think people are waking up. They're waking up and they're arriving back to come see how the locals are going. Oh, it's a mess. It's a real mess. Everyone's all over the place. Elvin Archer says, well, my meds are kicking in, so better say goodnight. Thanks for the chat, folks. Captain Switzerland, you're awesome. Thanks for joining me, man. It's been fun. Assuming you're a man. I always tend to assume my viewers are male. Most of them are, but not all of them. But yeah, thank you for joining us. And for the rest of you out there who've been with me for God knows how many hours at this point. I know Shafted's been here for basically the whole of it. So good on you, Shafted. And there's a few of you that have been here for like hours and hours and hours, sticking it out with me. Frank says I fell asleep by accident for 2 hours, but otherwise I've been here since midnight. Oh yeah, Jafaffa, there we are. Oh, yeah. Symbios Modest says lurked. I knew there was a few lurkers. Well, more than a few lurkers. Like, given the views versus the number of people commenting, there's quite a lot of lurkers here. But thank you to you lot as well for staying here as long as you had. Have the lurkers that goes. I'm really at a loss of anything more to report right now, other than risking completely repeating myself. Until we start getting some new stuff in, there's not an awful lot to say at the moment. I feel like things are going to pick up and speed up at some point. They're going to have to once everyone's awake and doing the counts in places where they haven't been doing counts yet. But it's 7:20 at the moment, and hang on a minute. Someone can't post a link. Have yourself a spanner. It's 7:20 at the moment, so we're probably going to have to wait. I think someone had said they thought it would start back up at 9 again. Sounds reasonable enough, I suppose. It's probably going to be a little bit of time. You haven't been reporting a single thing about Stormy Daniels. Is that a meme? Is that like a joke American thing? Oh dear, I'm not functioning today. Or has there been some dramatic, new, exciting Stormy Daniels stuff, which I've apparently missed? Oh, here we are, being linked to Havering result in there. Thank you. Oh yeah, I'd clicked on this one earlier, but oh right. So how many are picked out of each ward? Is it 3? Is it 3 from each ward? That probably sounds right. I'll assume it's 3, but I'm reading it for now at least. So that's Conservative, Conservative, Labour, Residents, 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 Residents. A lot of independent residents groups here. Residents, Residents, Residents. Yeah, so no overall control sounds right. I'm not going to be able to work out from here what the gains are though. It doesn't say previously. Well, I suppose I can compare it against the results from 2014. Oh, it's an exclusive report. Ari Corbyn and Stormy Daniels. That's what it was. Stormy Daniels in collusion with the Russians to deliver Corbyn a mildly, relatively local election result in order to some sort of a secret Russian plot. That much makes sense. That fits the narrative so far, I suppose. Right. Any more to say on that? No, nothing to update us on the locals over there. There really is nothing right now. What happened with Kensington and Chelsea, asks Anne-Marie. 1 seat moved. The Labour Party gained 1 seat from the Conservatives, and Kensington and Chelsea was a Conservative hold. There was like virtually no movement. Well, translating to seats moving, that is, there was no movement. Which really surprised me. I said Kensington and Chelsea would be a Conservative hold, but I said that really being unsure how it would pan out, but kind of on the side of caution, saying it'd be a Conservative hold. The fact that it stayed so strongly Conservative, that surprised me. I've been surprised a couple of times tonight, actually. The Lib Dems gaining that council, I didn't think they would in London. I was kind of on a knife edge with that anyway, so that wasn't too much of a shock. The Lib Dems losing ground in Sutton, that was a surprise. Certainly what's gone in Barnet, I didn't see that coming. That's a surprise. I realised I had the headphones on for some reason. I'm speaking a lot louder for people who are asleep in the other room. What else has there been? I don't know. The overall result it's had some surprises for me anyway. The overall night. Kipper collapse, we all saw that coming, but as for everything else, yeah. It'll be interesting once this is all done. I'll go back through what my predictions were for the different councils in London. I'll see how many of them I seem to line up with. I mean, to be honest, right, a lot of them are very easy guesses. A lot of them were like solidly, like something ridiculous, like 55 out of 60 seats Labour or something. And it's like, yeah, well, that one's going to stay Labour. So some of them were fairly easy guesses, but I think I might have got most of them. Well, I would have got most of them right. I think I probably would have got about 3 or 4 wrong, as it turns out. Still got to wait on Tower Hamlets. If Labour don't take Tower Hamlets, then goodness me, I don't think they'll be taking any councils in London. So what that's going to do for their overall net score, that'll be interesting. Pip Flip says there's been a volcanic eruption in Hawaii. 10,000 people have been evacuated. Is this? Oh, excuse me. Sorry. Is this a big deal at the moment? More storms forecast as India. Oh, storms in India as well, with a death toll rising. That's what they're saying on World News on the BBC right now, at least. Anne Marie says, not too surprised talking about Kensington and Chelsea. Most of the Grenfell-related voters wouldn't have voted Tory in the first place. Most of the rich Tory voting residents have probably conveniently forgotten about him. Oh, Frank says, Labour gained 4 seats in Havering. As predicted, we gained more from UKIP than from residents. Oh, interesting there. And I take it, yeah, I mean, I can double check on here, but I think we're right in saying the Kippers have been totally wiped out in Havering, haven't they? Yeah. All right then. Well, some modest gains in Havering. It's nothing to sniff at, I suppose. At least the Tories didn't gain overall control of it. I suppose that's rather nice from a Labour perspective. Oh, we've had a little bit of movement, and the webcam was on me when it happened as well. We had I think that was on 9 a few moments ago, and it's on 7. And Labour's been around the 22 mark for a while, so up to 27 is a bit of a jump. So yeah, this is the closest to some kind of a bit of exciting. This is the most interesting thing that's happened in about 25 minutes. We're also 98 councils now out of 150, so we're getting there, and gradually it seems. Oh, new tweet from Liam Coleman. So the final results are in. That's all from me tonight. Thank you for everyone. So Havering Council makeup is now 25 Conservative, 23 Residents Associations, 5 Labour, and 1 Independent. Well, there we have it. I said that Labour had some room to make some gains, and it turns out they did in that case, at least. Oh. Any more over here? Not by the looks of it. Oh, forget you, Sky News. I'm done with you. Trash. At least when it comes to reporting seats as quickly as anywhere else might do. Oh, hold up. Someone's been cleared up here. Aha, yeah. That'll be what will that be? What will that be that's just removed the Conservative no overall control one? That'll be Barnet, I assume. But I don't know, because it says change. Well, no, it says councillors change compared with 2014, not necessarily councils. I don't know, because previously we had the Conservatives down 1 and no overall control up 1. That's right, and then that's balanced out now. So obviously somewhere has moved from no overall control to Conservative as far as what their rankings are. So that leaves us with the council's overall now as -1 Labour, +1 Lib Democrat. So yeah, if Labour's going to want to be able to say measurably they've done better than the Tories, I think they're going to need to gain themselves a council somewhere. That much seems to make sense. As I keep saying, Tower Hamlets, that could be the one. By the way, if I mention Camden at any point, I mean Tower Hamlets, because I may have done that once or twice. I seem to have done that a few times. Or at least I think I am. Subterranean music. I'm off to get some sleep soon in a few hours. Cheers, Swiss. It's been a pleasure. You're more than welcome. Have a nice sleep. Actually, you know what? If the Beavers added this, then we can now click on here and surely something will come up. Lewisham, Southwark, Bexley, Waltham Forest, Enfield, Barnet. Here we are. Results from Barnet. They're not in, but they know it's blue. And they've had the full thing back. Yeah, I'm guessing that's where it'll be then. It'll be the Barnet one that's flipped it. as far as these rankings here go, because it was in no overall control at the time the election took place, even though the Tories won it in 2014. Nothing more. Still waiting on Kingston upon Thames. I've been keen to get that one for a little while. It's interesting because the Lib Dems have had a fairly good night, and I'm not sure if any of you guys had spotted this, but it's like some of the very last few polls that we had before the locals, and I'm really only talking about the last 2 or 3 I remember seeing. A few of them tended to have the Lib Dems up by a point or two, usually to the detriment of Labour and the Conservatives, but they tended to have the Lib Dems up. And I noticed that, and it was interesting that there seemed to be a last-minute upsurge in Lib Dem, stated Lib Dem support shortly before the election. I didn't really know what to make of it, though, especially how, excuse me, how that would national polling would translate into local election results. But certainly from what we can see, it seems to say in these locals they've done a fair bit better than they thought they might. OCJ123 says, "Good morning, Captain. Good morning. Welcome back. I hope you've had a nice sleep. Because as you can probably tell from my tone of voice, I'm somewhat tired at this point in time. I was definitely a lot more energetic when we started, I know that much. No changes there. Surprise, surprise. Oh well, we've got Barnett in. It's Conservative. We know that much at least. Nothing more coming from here at the moment. Liam Coleman's done telling us about Havering. Those mayoral contests, haven't got any of them yet. I mean, I'm assuming at this point that anything that we haven't had yet, that like no counting work seems to have been started on, they must have very deliberately said, we will not be counting it overnight. We will be beginning to count it in the morning. That seems to follow, because otherwise, surely we'd be getting like updates on places that were being counted by now and stuff like that. Why is it taking so long? Blah blah blah. So probably the mayoral contests and a third of the councils, it seems, were at least in bulk being kept until today to have a look at. We know at least some were, for example, Runnymede, but probably, it wouldn't be them in isolation, a hell of a lot more of them as well. Sinbio says, yes, some have. Shafted says, how weird. Sky says the Tories have 777 seats. Pure Logic. Were you here like at the beginning? I think I remember that name. Oi oi, results looking good, I see. I mean, if you're a Liberal Democrat, maybe. Otherwise, for anyone else, I don't think it's too much to write home about. What does a council seat pay? Not very much from what I'm aware. I think I remember reading somewhere you might get like $2,000 a year for doing it, but that's it. It's not like a fully paid salary position. It's generally just like expenses, maybe a tiny bit on top or something. But people can correct me on that, because I can't say for sure. But roughly, like, not much. I don't think it pays like a proper salary job. It's not like being an MP, because there's a hell of a lot of councillors out there. I'll give this a refresh. Oh, Movement, folks. Movement. Labour up to 30. Tories down to 4. Most interesting thing in 10 minutes. Here we are. Oh. Where's that vape of mine gone? I'm forever dropping it somewhere and not knowing where it is. I've well and truly lost it now. Oh no, there it is. Pure Logic says, yeah, it was here last night. Maybe a little heavy on how much I'm against Tories. Do I dare give this another refresh? No change. Oh well. Savor it, guys. Savor it for a moment that we actually had something change. Because we might not get any change for a while after that. Although another council done, 99 of 150 councils. We are nearly well and truly at the 1/3 mark there. 2/3 mark, I ought to say. Surprising, we might see Conservative losses overall and the resignation of Theresa May. I highly doubt we're going to get a resignation from May after this, to be honest with you. I think we'll end up with Tory losses overall. I think that'll be the case. I think we've very nearly pushed ourselves into that now. But May going over, a few lost councillors, I don't think so, to be honest. New vote share for Westminster City Council. Obviously, that was a Conservative hold, as you can see. There equals some gains by Labour, -3 for the Tories, +3 for Labour. So next time round, I think Labour need to win. If they win 11, it'll be like no overall control. Or no, that's not right, is it? No, it might be. It might be like 50-50 or something. Near enough. Oh, got my hopes up there, thinking something might have changed. Right, well, we're done with this tab because Barnet's in now by the sounds of it. Or at least it is on the map down here, even if we don't have the results in. Where was it? Camden, Barnet, there we go. Anything from Barnet? No, it's fine. We know how it's panned out. Conservatives held that one, or regained it from no overall control, whichever way you want to slice it. Let me refresh this if they updated it. Oh, they have done. Okay. This was good. This was recommended earlier on by who was it? Was it Michael from in the chat who put me onto this? I think it was. This has got like a nice breakdown of some of the statistics. We might as well go back over things, given there's nothing new to report on for the next little while. So I'll zoom in a little bit as well. So councils gained, councils lost. I don't think is this entirely up to date at the moment. Well, they got Richmond upon Thames there, and they didn't have it last time I checked, so they've definitely added something to it. These are the London council results coming in. So as you can see, we've still got half, well, according to this, over half of it to come. Maybe it's a bit delayed, so maybe call it about half or so. So I suppose from the perspective of saying what was going to happen with Tories losing their gains and eventually turning to losses and Labour making more, if we assume that a fair bit of this has been happening since London came into play, if there's half of London still to come, let's consult the map here. Yeah, it looks like there's bits of London still to come, maybe nearly half. Then I'd say it's reasonable to say that we will see the Tories, if it's been following the same trend, dropping into, -10, -20. I'm not too confident to say if they'll drop any further than that, but That's where they'll end up going, and then maybe Labour up, I don't know, plus 40 altogether, maybe something like that. That's within the next, I don't know, hour, 2 hours. That's what we've got to look forward to. And of course, the Kippers breaking the threshold with 100 losses, which it's taken forever to happen, hasn't it? Oh, tisk Wikipedia. The result's been out for a whole 30 minutes and haven't even updated it. So anyway, yeah, that's what they're saying for London. These are pretty nice. I like these. The way they show it seems to be pretty. It's got some ingenuity to it. So you can kind of you can see why I wasn't predicting the Richmond one, because look at that change of councillors there. That's massive. That's far bigger than sort of anything I would have gone, oh yeah, they'll comfortably be able to take that. And then again, what baffles me is, interestingly, bordering Sutton next to Richmond, Lib Dem drop, Tory gains. But hey ho, there we are. And then this is I think. Oh no, I'll go back to the beginning. I'll just scroll through it slowly if you guys want to sort of take these in. Oh, that's quite enough of that. I'm done looking at all those seats for now. That's the end of there. Shall we see if we've had any change? Oh, I think I saw one more result there, maybe. Who knows? Astral Frost says May won't go over this, but if in any case seeing her go would be a shame, as she's a horrible campaigner. She's a real people person, like the female version of Mr. Burns, after Pure Logic said, but she loves people. No, nothing more. Yeah, it looks like we've certainly got a massive lull in the results now, haven't we? Results prove nothing, warns Professor. You can be sure each political party will be picking over last night's results in detail to understand where they succeeded and failed, but they are misguided if they try to predict how they might have fared in a general election, says Ian McLean, Professor of Politics at the University of Oxford. People say, if there was a general election tomorrow, what do these prove? I want to say absolutely nothing, Professor McLean told BBC Radio Oxford. That warning aside, he said there was a pattern of areas which chose to leave the EU voting Conservative and areas which voted to remain backing Labour. He mentioned West Oxfordshire and Swindon, where the Tories held control, as examples. Labour was quite confident of winning the council in Swindon, and they failed to do so, and Swindon was a Leave voting area. So that's interesting, then. Because he's not the only person to say that Labour are struggling in Leave areas at the moment. But as I say, the question is for Labour, in terms of electoral viability, say they pivot over onto Leave, which personally I'd really like them to do, but say they were to do that, then suddenly all those Remain areas they're doing, do the Lib Dems and the Greens suddenly move in to soak up a load of the vote? You never know. Watford JC says the Watford Observer are reporting that voter ID pilot resulted in 19% of people, might be a typo, being turned away, and polling staff too busy checking IDs to notice, quote, family voting. So, assuming that is all correct, then it sounds like it's not been great. Been a bit of a failure, perhaps. Hadrian says that I couldn't vote. Ewan Bryant says, can you give me a too long didn't read of what happened? Sure. Basically, I'll bring us back up here as well so you can kind of see it as I explain it. Basically, Labour have not done anywhere near as good as we'd expected. The Tories haven't quite done as badly as we'd expected. The Lib Dems have done pretty all right for themselves. The Greens are doing pretty okay, but they're still kind of nowhere. And UKIP have absolutely collapsed. Labour seem to have done well in Remain areas and like cities and urban areas, whereas the Tories seem to have done well in Leave areas and rural areas. As far as the total number of councils changing goes, right now we're down one Labour and plus one Lib Dem, but there's been a bit of movement there. It's hard to say how it's going to go. We've got like 2/3 of the results in at the moment, so 1/3 left to go. I think by the time all is said and done, at the moment the Tories are up on councillors. I think they're going to be down on councillors. I hope, but I don't know for sure, that Labour will be at least neutral in terms of their councils. Might be a bit ambitious at this point to say they'll be up one, but not entirely sure. There's too much coming in that I don't know about. So the too long didn't read. It's been a really mixed night. And apart from UKIP doing awful and the Lib Dems doing rather well, for everyone else, it's a bit tricky to say. That's probably the best I can give you. I hope that's a fairly decent summary in a couple of minutes there. Scott Bow says, do you think we can safely say that the Tories have roughly reached their peak potential with the fold of UKIP? I don't know. I'm cautious to say that either the Conservatives or Labour have reached their peak. I mean, I do think that once Brexit, well, I have thought that once Brexit's over, the Tory vote share would diminish somewhat. Whether that will still be the case, I'm not sure. I don't know. The reasons I had for believing that, I think I've still got them to some degree. But after these locals, obviously having anticipated at least some better traction for Labour in these locals, and no doubt, as I say, it looks like they're going to be doing better than they have in their last two locals, but nonetheless not anything great or amazing. Probably, meh at best. I might have to evaluate. I don't know. Again, what can you read from the locals into a general? I think too much. I think, honestly, I believe that too much about what will happen in the next election is going to hinge on two things, and that is Brexit and whether we've hit another recession or not. And I think those two factors, until they have or haven't happened a certain way, it's kind of hard to say how things will go. I think if we were to have an election like, tomorrow or next month, we'd get a broadly similar result to what we presently have in the Commons. I think Parliament, it'd probably still be a hung Parliament of sorts. So yeah, that's what I think at the moment. Frank says, aren't we currently going into another recession? Yeah, I think we're on our way into one. I think if one doesn't hit this year, and I thought it would hit this year, but if it doesn't hit this year, it'll be next year. So they tend to happen in cycles. We're starting to get some of the same signs with the housing market, the stock market, businesses closing down, although Whether that means there's, one imminent, or whether it just means that there's different trends on the high street, I don't know. But there's a few markers of a recession around the corner that I've started noticing in the last year or so. So I expect we're not that far off from one. Reaction King's back and says, "Geez, Labour." Yep. They've improved their standing on councillors from, I don't know, 6 hours ago, or whenever it was you were here last, but certainly rather disappointing compared to how we thought they may have gone. I haven't refreshed the page in a while. Oh, well, there we are. I say that. One more councillor for Labour, one less for the Tories. There's something going on there. 99 councils back in. How well do you reckon Tories would do with Jacob Rees-Mogg as leader at the general election in a general election next year? Oh man, I don't know. I think Mogg's got a similar thing to Corbyn, which is he appeals to a specific demographic, like, on the left or on the right, and he'd be able to energize sort of the grassroots behind him. But whether his wider personal appeal translates to the public at large, that would be tricky. I think Mogg is probably viewed as being intelligent, perhaps competent as well. Although, as far as sort of his personality is a plus and a minus depending on who it is, but I think there's enough people out there who probably think his views are fairly backwards on, sort of marriage, abortion, things along those lines, that there's a there's a demographic of liberal, I say it in like, the small L rather than liberal Democrats or whatever, I don't know, but of liberal minded voters out there who probably would not countenance voting for a Jacob Rees-Mogg led Conservative government one way or another. As for how Mogg would fare, like a Mogg Conservative Party versus a Corbyn Labour Party, I really can't say at the moment. It's kind of it's kind of beyond me to offer a prediction on that right now. I'd really have to see what the reaction to Mogg would be as Conservative leader in the long term, not just sort of immediately after it happened, but kind of once he gets in there and we find out what the policies are and how the population react to them and the rest of it. So that's the best I can give for now on that one, I'm afraid. Scott Bauer says, Left Gabriel says a recession would benefit Labour, ? Scott Bauer says, thing is, if a recession hits under a powerful Tory party, then what's that going to do to that image of being good at the economy? Astral Frost thinks that Labour's chances were overhyped. And pretty sure that the negative media hasn't helped either. Well, I'd agree with you there. I don't think it's helped. Would a recession? I think a recession damages the party that's in power when the recession hits. And depending on if it's a big recession, say we have another recession and it's, I don't know, will it be of the scale of the 2008 financial crisis? Perhaps not. But whoever's sitting in the hot seat when the recession hits will be blamed, arguably, for the recession. Or at least they'll be damaged a little bit because of it. I mean, recessions come and go. That's kind of the cycle of the current financial system we have. But I would say one thing, which is that if a recession hits under the Conservatives and it's a big recession, and suddenly people whose living standards and wages have stagnated for God knows how long and now staring down the barrel of going, oh, and the jobs market is looking worse and the economy is looking worse and my personal financial situation is looking worse, they may well ask themselves, well, what was the point of all of those Tory policies and, quote, tough decisions that had to be made for so many years if now we've managed to land ourselves in just a equally dire looking situation? They probably won't care too much for the books being balanced if that's the case. But so yeah, I think in a sense, if there were, well, I certainly do think that if there were a recession with the Conservatives in charge and Labour kind of have a nice optimistic plan on offer of how they're going to get us out of it and kind of rebuild things, more equality, you know, or less inequality, however you want to put it. That could probably benefit them. Yeah, as I say, I think recessions damage the party that's in power when they hit. Generally, if Corbyn has to go, who would replace him? I anticipate someone from the so-called soft left of Labour being the most likely one to replace him. I don't know actually, because if it depends who the candidates are. I like the makeup of the Labour membership. I could totally see them electing another left winger, but it would have to be the right left winger, the correct left winger. Like if, I don't know, McDonnell were to stand, which I don't think he would, but say if he was, even the membership that elected Corbyn, I'm not entirely sure they'd elect McDonnell. Personally, I think that the most likely and probably the ideal successor to Corbyn would be someone from the so-called soft left of the party, someone who's been broadly on side with Corbyn's agenda. They may not personally be as left-wing as Corbyn is, but they're not exactly going to hand the party back to the Blairites anytime soon. Personally, I could settle for that. I could settle for something like that happening. Someone, actually, Hadrian there says, I want Ed back. I could settle for an Ed Miliband, but like an unleashed Ed Miliband, not Ed Miliband in 2015 pretending to be David Cameron. Ed Miliband in 2018 being a bit more honest about what his politics is and being kind of supportive of Corbyn. Who have people mentioned? I think people have mentioned Emily Thornberry. She seems like she seems like a sensible successor. She's one that I mention from time to time. Like on a personal level, I'm not crazy about Emily Thornberry. I think she's all right. I think she does a good job at PMQs. She's been in sort of high level politics for a while, so she's got the experience as well. I'd say she'd be a fairly good choice. Looking at other possibilities from, again, people who I think would be good with the membership. Clive Lewis is another one that's spoken about. Laura Pidcock, I think the membership would like her. She certainly seems to be on the left on the party, but she seems pretty inexperienced as well. And then who else have you got? Who are they? Angela Rayner and who's the other one? Rebecca Long Bailey. I hear them two getting mentioned as well. I'd say odds on that the next Labour leader will be a woman, by the way, simply because the field for potential successors seems to be filled with women. And that's, that's not because of any all-women shortlists or anything like that. It's just down to who's in the cabinet and who seems to be making a name for themselves at the moment. I think it's likely the next Labour leader will be a woman, whoever takes over from Corbyn, because most of the most likely successors are women, it seems. Yeah, maybe I'll say Emily Thornberry for the time being. I mean, she's kind of the obvious pick, but it makes sense why she's the obvious pick. So that's the one I'd probably go for. But to be honest, I wouldn't mind having Miliband back. Really, I don't know how he gel with the public, but on a personal level, I don't. I like Miliband more now than I did a few years back. But it's funny that you only tend to like them after their leader. 2019, Owen Smith versus Tony Blair for Labour leadership. Oh my God, can you imagine? Can you imagine? What a choice. How would I vote if I were, I don't know. No, I think that would be the last straw for me. I don't think I would. I think the moment I saw that coming from a mile away, I would have tore up my membership card if I thought I'd be stuck in a leadership election between Owen Smith and Tony Blair. Neither of those are offering my kind of what I'd like Labour to be, I suppose. Philip Mason says, lol, still going Swiss. That's right. Still at it. I certainly feel like I'm hanging a bit at this point. I mean, I've been saying that for the last few hours, but I really bloody well mean it now. 8 a.m. Oh, the time's going by slowly. There's no more results coming in anymore. Nothing's happening. It's like slowed to an absolute crawl. Oh, and Bemusemon's back as well. Everyone's turning back up at the same time. Yep, still alive. But not an awful lot to see, I'm afraid. Matthew Cooper says David Lammy. I don't know. I know he's made a bit of a name for himself in the past few weeks with Windrush and everything. Is he in the shadow cabinet? I'm not aware of him being in the shadow cabinet. I don't know if he's had a position already. I think he's just a regular MP from what I remember. I don't know. He's another one that perhaps he's not enough of a heavyweight to take over. But I'm not sure. I'd probably say, as I say, probably Emily Thornberry. She makes a fair bit of sense. Oh, we've had some movement, it seems. Yeah, that looks like movement to me. Labour 32, Conservatives 2. We're nearly there, guys. You remember that thing that I said was going to happen hours and hours and hours ago? Well, when we might only be 45 minutes away from it happening if it carries on at the current rate. Of the Conservatives shifting on over into net seat losses. Oh, Frank says David Lammy was in Gordon Brown's government, Minister for Culture, Innovation, Unis and Skills. Well, yeah, culture, innovation, unis and skills. It doesn't. It's not really. It's kind of low tier stuff, though, isn't it? No, I don't know. I feel that there's other people further up the list that people would probably go for before they go for David Lammy. David Lammy was outspoken in the 2010 riots too. He tends to surface every now and then. Yeah, usually when I hear about David Lammy, it's in the context of Labour MP David Lammy has said so and so about so and so. It's kind of the kind of whenever I hear him crop up. Scott Bauer says I'd go for Barry Gardner. He's exceptional at handling the media. IMO. See, Barry Gardner's a funny one. I've kind of got a bit of a soft spot for him, but he's a little bit marmitey for me as well at the same time. I like the fact that he's a Brexiteer, first of all, and the fact that I think he's probably what you call a Labour moderate. And when I say moderate, I do kind of mean probably in the middle of the party, maybe even closer to the Blairite wing, but not a full-blooded Blairite. But what he's done is he's got on board. Corbyn became leader and he took a job in the shadow cabinet and he's done his job and he's done it fairly well. I'm quite pleased with that. I think it's a good example of someone who might not agree with all of Corbyn's views, but taking a role and doing that role to the best of their abilities. And as I say, he's pro-Brexit, and he's a bit of a Brexit realist as well. He was outspoken about the Labour's tests, the policies for their tests or whatever it was on Brexit recently, which got him in a bit of trouble. And he should have been a bit more careful about his words. But at the same time, for me at least, it was like, yeah, he's on side as far as kind of what I'm after. My questions with Gardner though are: do I think he could tangibly run for prime minister? Could I really see him in TV debates? Could I really see him at the dispatch box and meeting world leaders? I'm not sure. I mean, then again, I suppose people have their doubts about that in Corbyn as well, don't they? But for me, I just can't quite make the leap with Barry Gardner. But, if he were to run in a Labour leadership election, there's a fair chance I'd vote for him, probably over a few others at least. Depends who he was up against. I'll put it this way: Barry Gardner versus Owen Smith. I'd be going with Barry Gardner then. Oh, Kanye for PM. Oh, he's had some fantastic insights on American history recently, hasn't he? Scott says, I didn't know Barry's a Brexiteer. Fair play to him. Oh, he's like a submarine Brexiteer. He surfaces every now and then, but he spends most of his time under the water. Good night, everyone, says Michael. Don't have too much fun without me. Oh. All right. I believe Old School is awake, so I'm going to go say hello to him for a couple minutes and get myself another drink. I will leave you guys with, there we are. That's the most recently updated page there. Let anyone new turning up know where I am. I'll see you guys in a bit. Oh, I've arrived back just in time because someone's just said, "Where's Captain?" Yeah, just went off to a chat to old school because he's just woken up and pinch a cigarette off of him as well because vaping's fun, but cigarettes are much better, really. Uh, let's give the page an old refresh, see if anything's happened. Oh, well, there we are, folks. We've hit 0. We've hit councillor neutral on the old Conservative front and plus 34 on Labour. I'm glad I didn't miss it. As if it makes any difference me seeing it, but still, having watched it for so many hours, I'm pleased I finally spotted it before it flipped the other way. Welcome back, Capsers Astro. Thank you. Did you make him breakfast in bed? I didn't. No, I did not make him breakfast in bed, I'm afraid. But I brought him a lighter, and that's close enough, right? So, has anything interesting happened while I've been away, other than those few seats flipping there? Anything from the good old Beeb down at the bottom? Nope. 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 All right, we'll keep a close eye on that tally. If you hear it flipping. If you see it flipping, do let me know. Yep. And how are you all doing, by the way? I know a few of you are joining me after having got some sleep overnight. But I know there's a few of you out there who've been up all night as well. So, well, I guess to both of you out there, those of you who've just joined us again, like recently, who've been asleep, what's your reaction to the results that you've seen, sort of that you've woken up to? And just the people who've been here all night, how's it hanging? Are you surviving? When are you planning to crash out? There's still 1,500 seats left to declare. Oh, there are. There's so much left to come still, isn't there? Why can't they just get the counts over and done with? Saving them until the next day. What's wrong with them? Think how many jobs we could create. I'm tired, but probably going to be heading to my nan and aunt's later to debate the results of them, says Frank. That sounds like fun. Rahi Ali, so Labour's net game estimate is still possible with the remaining councils. Oh, it's tricky. I think if they take Tower Hamlets, they could be council neutral. I don't know about any of the rest of them. Those could flip any number of ways, but I really don't know about like the other remaining councils that only have a few left. I don't think there's any more gains for them to be had in London at the very least. But the Tories are back up one again. They're not going down without a fight, are they? But yeah, certainly the Labour domination in London that sort of had been expected really hasn't materialised. They've made some gains. They've made gains in London, but Barnet, which we thought they might be able to take, they really haven't. And none of the other main targets either, for that matter. But they might be able to take Tower Hamlets out of no overall control into Labour control. GNIP says, my reaction was UKIP got seats. I know, right? They held on to 2 of them. Not a total wipeout for them. Well, Tories are back up to 2 again. There we are. Astral Foster's been here all night, planning to go to bed within an hour, though. Big day ahead. Fair enough, man. Communist Carrot, we just lost a seat. Oh, yeah, I know. They come, they go. Robert says, I'm wondering why the count for this was taking so long. Because they started counting some of them last night, and then there are others that they basically, by the looks of it, just decided, no. We're gonna save those until Friday. We're not even gonna bother starting on them tonight. Rodog says Labour made gains. Those numbers look good. I mean, they look good relative to the Tories, at least. I'd really like it if they managed to clear up that one council they're down right now. But you're right, yeah. I think they're going to finish with gains on councillors and Tories with losses. So that's something at least. But, you know, not even the result for Labour I'd been expecting, really. It's going to be a bit more disappointing than that. Labour are approaching the same number of gains as the Lib Dems. That's true, actually. Yeah. I mean, I do see the Labour Party finishing with more gains than the Lib Dems, so it'll be interesting to see that happen. Phil Mason says, I'm not surprised little has changed. There never was a feeling of any major upsets emerging. Rahe Ali seems to agree with that. Shafted added earlier, because some people sleep and count the next day. Oh, man. These are happening quicker than I can read them now. People talking about that stuff. Do you know if my council, Cheltenham, has been called yet, says Rodog. We can have a look for you. Cheltenham. It has, yeah. It's a Lib Dem hold with +3 for the Lib Dems, -1 for the Tories, and -2 for the Independents. That's how Cheltenham has panned out. But it remains Lib Dem ran. So there we have it. That was Cheltenham for you. Barnet is full of traditional oldies. They'll fall in time, especially if the NHS collapses. That will hasten their departure, says Oliver Foster. Oh man, there's a few comments here. I'm gonna have to skip over a few of them to catch up. What does an objective victory and defeat look like for the main three? Oh man, these are difficult questions. I mean, I feel that we are not going to get an objective victory for Labour or an objective defeat for the Tories. I think we're going to get some kind of a middling ground between the two of them. As I've already said, I think Labour probably are going to come out better on this than the Tories, but not by any kind of overly significant, exciting margin. The closest, I'd say, anyone, all right, UKIP. I'd say UKIP have objectively been defeated. I think you can class that as an objective defeat pretty comfortably. And the Lib Dems, relative to the size and traction their party had, the fact they've made some gains, some councils, they'll be fairly happy with that. But basically, there's been nothing too exciting today. There's been nothing too wild in any direction. It's kind of, you know, we're talking about changes in councillors at the moment, at least in the tens, not even the hundreds, given we've still got a few to come in. So there we are, really. A minor victory for Labour, a minor defeat for the Tories, maybe put it in those terms. Astral Frost says, could be worse. And I remember Labour losing something like 350 seats last year. Correct me if I'm wrong. They went on to do pretty well in the general election, so I doubt it's much connected. I mean, the thing is, of course, it depends on which regions of the UK are voting, because demographically, not demographically, geographically, but also demographically, what bit of the country you live in and what bits are up in the locals, that will have big flux of what those results will be. But kind of, we've had places that were expected to be bad for Labour in previous local elections, and kind of that's been reflected. But in these locals, we're expecting them to be good for Labour. And, you know, I think Labour's going to gain out of it, but they're not going to be great for Labour. They're just going to be like, yeah, they're going to be all right, I think. I mean, if Labour can come out as the party with the largest number of councillor gains, then they can rather reasonably point to themselves as saying, well, you know, we made the biggest gains in terms of sheer numbers of councillors out of anybody. Although it would be good for them to be able to at least be neutral or up on the councils as well, to be able to back that up. But otherwise, I think, yeah, Labour can fairly make a claim to say we've done all right tonight. And I think they will. I think Labour will be able to say we've done all right. They just won't be able to say we've done great. There we are. Frank Mahawkstein says geopolitically is the word ? I think it could be in that range, couldn't it? Geopolitically. When I talk about geopolitics, I usually think of like relations between countries rather than the other thing I was on about. But it's not a bad word to use for it. Where else are we at? Oliver Foster says, I think if Labour have anything in a positive direction, it's still amazing given all the papers that are still in Toryville. Remember, the press has gotten worse since the election. Well, I'll give you that, yeah. Councils are the important thing. You need to run a council to make a difference, says the bemused one. Yeah, I agree there. And that's why I think if Labour want to do well, they're going to have to at least be neutral or up one. They can't really be down. That's not going to look great. Philip Mason says, too many spanners. There's no incentive for side chat moderators. Use free market economy to choose mods. It's not humiliation, so that's good, said Shafted. Oh, careful. You get like fucking Guido Fawkes jumping on this, or whatever they're called. Guido Fawkes? It's like Guy Fawkes, isn't it? Going, oh, look at these pro-Labour comments. They're fucking defeated and on suicide watch. It wasn't a humiliation, so that's all right. Not all spanners are equal spanner privilege. Oh, we're back on the spanner hype train again, aren't we? Where are we at? No new differences with these ones, eh? Oh, coming with the puns. Yeah, but you're all tools, says Oliver Foster. And free market spanner economy just means you'll hoard all the spanners and the rest of us get non-Philip Mason. Well, this is it. I kind of think that, you know, a truly free market always ends up in a spanner monopoly. You need a degree of regulation there to make sure it doesn't end up in the hands of only a few people. But you can't have too much regulation and state control of the spanners because nobody gets spanners then. They get kind of semi-broken screwdrivers and they've got to queue up for 6 hours to get them. So you need to strike a little bit of balance somewhere between there. We need some hammers as well as spanners, spanner redistribution. Captain Swiss, how much coffee have you injected into your bloodstream to stay up? I have had like no caffeine since 11 p.m. Something like that. I've had nothing exciting to sort of keep me awake. No alcohol, no caffeine, no nothing. I've been on some tap water, the odd bit of vape and cigarette. Awfully centrist of you, Swiss, regarding the spanners. Well, I said the answer lied somewhere between the two. I never said how far to the left or the right it might have to. You know, I won't be drawn. I'm not going to create a manifesto for the spanner utopia here and now. We'll work it out. We'll muddle our way through, guys. Let me give it a refresh. Anything new? No, of course not. Of course not. We're sustaining ourselves through pure ideology. Oh, Papa Zizek would be happy. We need to distribute hammer and sickles. I've got a 3-litre Pepsi Max, which I've been drinking. Oh, bitches! Ah! Shit, hell. How you doing, man? Should I put the cam on? Look who I've got a visitor from. It's Old School Anarchist.
No matter who fucking wins, the people will always lose. Oh! Right, I'm off down to you in that minute.
Have fun selling yourself to all those businesses.
Yeah.
Well, it was nice to hear from Old School before he headed off, wasn't it? That's fucking woke me up, I'll tell you that much. Oh, have fun, man. I'll probably be gone by the time you're back, but cheers for letting me use your PC.
No problem, mate. Anytime, man. I've enjoyed it.
Sweet. That's right, by the way, folks. I've got the exclusive getcucks.com t-shirt on. Been wearing that for the whole evening. You may not have seen it until now. Good job I wasn't wearing headphones so shafted. Yeah, damn right. Oh, that's going to be like a choice moment. See, I was about to say if I edit together like I don't know, like a best bits of the local live stream, but in order to do that, that would mean I'd have to sit through all of it or most of it. I'd have to sit through at least a good 5 or 6 hours of me sitting here refreshing the Oh, and while we're at it, why don't we refresh the page and just find out what if we've had any changes? Here we go. You ready? Oh, how bitterly disappointing. Yeah, best bit of the 2 streams. Maybe. I mean, you can probably imagine that my enthusiasm for doing that isn't as high right now as it might be a day from now once I've slept and had a sandwich or something. I might be more in the mood to do it then. Spanocentrism versus socialism and an iPad for new ideology for the Labour Party. Thoughts? Oh, right. What can I offer you on that one? Jess Phillips for leader, the bemused one. We were getting on so well today. Why do you need to say such things to hurt me right now? Don't some of the final councils come out at 5 to 7 p.m? Why are you trying to upset me as well, Rahi Ali? I thought we were friends. Why are you all being so mean to me now? Phil Mason says the cat will be missing me. That's true. He'll be happy when I'm back. He'll probably meow at me and tell me off for being gone. Captain Switzerland versus John McDonnell Labour leadership election. How would that one pan out? Well, welcome back. Oh.
Yeah, nice one.
Have a good one, man.
Swiss.
Catch you later, dude.
Yeah, I mean,
old school.
wink, wink. Once Connex is finished, yeah.
Sounds good to me, man.
Yeah. I'll see you later.
Latest, dude. We had to protect his identity there, you know. Who knows who old school anarchists could really be? Cameron Hickman says, Captain Switzerland, do you think this will weaken or strengthen Theresa May's leadership? I think her corpse will be sewed up by the mainstream media and her MPs. What, like these local elections? I think they're going to have pretty much no effect on her leadership, to be honest. I don't think it's going to be a bad enough result for it to reflect that badly on Theresa May. To be completely honest with you guys. I think, you know, if the Tories were losing, if they'd lost maybe 3 or 4 councils, if they've lost maybe 300 or 400 councillors, we'd be having a different conversation. But, you know, how might it end up? At worst, maybe they lose 1 council. At worst, maybe they lose 50 councillors. You know, I don't think it's enough to be able to, you know, if we're imagining Theresa May teetering on the edge and trying to push her off, I don't even think it'll manage that. I think the only thing that's going to bring down Theresa May at the moment is like something really solidly catastrophic with Brexit, either within or without her own party. You know, I don't think these locals are going to have a massive effect, to be honest. But likewise, fortunately, I don't think the result of these locals are going to give the Labour MPs enough ammunition to try and do in Corbyn either. So that's the thing. It's kind of both of the party leaders, I think, are going to be relatively safe. Theresa May's results will be a bit disappointing, but you know what? They'll be pleased that they haven't lost a load. Corbyn's results will be disappointing relative to the expectations of lots of gains. But again, the fact he will have made, I hope, some gains, then, you know, they'll go, well, there were gains. Gains are good, I suppose. So I don't know. I think that once these local, once the dust has settled from these locals, aside from maybe continued anti-Semitism stories, because obviously Barnet, Jewish population not doing well there, that will feed into that. And obviously the Tories, I don't know, if they lose some councillors, that won't be great for them. To be honest, more than anything else, I think that any consequences of these locals that are going to come onto any of the parties, it will be UKIP, with everyone continuing to point at them and go, aren't you irrelevant now? Haha, you lost all your councillors. Or the Lib Dems feeling all bolstered for their hashtag Lib Dem fight back, feeling that they're fighting the good fight in sticking to their anti-Brexit line. I feel it will affect the smaller parties more than it will affect the larger parties in the long run. But, that's just guessing at the moment, really. What have you been saying? Let me scroll up a bit of this. Let me refresh this page as well, just in case I've missed anything. Not much. Labour's up 37 seats. The Tories are down 2. The Tories are down. Oh, all right, we've got there. Sorry, I thought they were back up 2 because I'm so used to seeing it ticking back up. We're there now, guys. The Tories are down 2 seats. It's happened. It's begun. We can now say that the Tories are down seats, Labour are down councils. There's, there's something there to it, at least. Don't worry, Swiss, Rahieli says. The Blairites will spin this by using expectations compared to real gains. Frank says, surprised Labour, this is a quote, surprised Labour did well in London when they're responsible for a lot of the social cleansing that's going on. A hot take from an Ancom mutual. I've got an Ancom mutual. He's just left, though, I think. UKIP knocking Labour out of Derby, bit of a shock. Yeah, that one was a bit of a surprise. It's like it was a surprise. It was good for UKIP and it was bad for Labour, but it's the only good bit of news UKIP have out of all this. They're going to fucking squeeze that for everything that it's worth, man. Forget the 100 councillors we lost. No. We managed to get the council leader out in Derby, and that's fucking worth its weight in gold there. So yeah, they'll be taking that one to the fucking bank and cashing it in. Ian Stanley says, I have just woken up to check on the updates. Was that Labour up 37 and Conservatives down 2? It was, but just for the benefit of you and anyone else who's just joined us, I'll just share this with you again. There's not an awful lot going on at the moment, so I'm kind of on cam for a while until things hot up again. But yeah, nothing much to report. UKIP are down massively. Tories have dipped now into losing councillors. I think that will continue to decrease slowly as time goes on. Labour might reach, I don't know, 50 plus, 60 plus, maybe something like that. Not really sure about the rest at the moment. I think the Lib Dems might have still more gains to make. We'll wait until this fabled bloody Kingston council result comes in. Philip Mason says May will feel a lot better than Corbyn this morning. Yeah, I think you're right there. If we're talking about expectations, no, I think you're right. Shafted said if Labour had won Wandsworth and Westminster, May would have been so. Yeah, if we were in that kind of territory, if Labour was flipping councils like Wandsworth and Westminster, then shit, it would have been a bad old time. For the Conservatives, obviously. Maybe then we would have been in the territory of going, yeah, you know what, Conservatives, they might need to have a chat with each other about whether to keep that Theresa May in or not. Bemused one says they won't replace May until after Brexit. Oliver Foss says, how does UKIP run a council? Epic start to a joke. I don't know, but it ends with all defecting back to the Conservatives. Lib Dems have gained more councils than Labour, says Vince for PM. I mean, technically, he is correct in terms of net councils. I think in terms of like just standard councils, he's wrong. But then again, the Lib Dems haven't lost as many as Labour either. Rahi Ali says, pisses me off that we didn't get Barnet. Oh, well, it's Jewish Central. Well, that's the thing. That factored a lot more than I thought it would. A hell of a lot more than I thought it would. I knew there was a 15% Jewish population, but even that I thought, oh, well, you know, it's not gonna swing things. You know, there's 85% who aren't. But then you think, but if the turnout's low in elections, if there's some people who are especially really fucking pissed off with the Labour Party, because they think it's full of anti-Semites, then they might bother to go out and vote. Fucking not vote for Labour. Perhaps that seems to make sense. We'll have to get more. I don't know. There might be some like polling done on that after the fact, though, and we'll get an idea of what the demographic voting intentions were. What the actual vote was, I suppose. Agree, Rahi. Swiss thought Barnet would go red, but I said it probably wouldn't. Sorry, Swiss. Oh, no, you called that one correctly, Shafted. I thought it would go red because it literally needed one or two new Labour councillors to go red. It was that close and got it off kilter. But hey ho, you know what? Me keeping my expectations low for places like Wandsworth, Westminster, even Kensington and Chelsea, which I was unsure about, but it turned out to be pretty damn sensible to say it was going to stay Tory. Those ones panned out. I overestimated Labour. I overestimated the Lib Dems slightly, but I thought they were going to have a good time. And I think, as far as the Tories holding on to a fuck ton of places, I reckon that would be the case, as would UKIP fucking falling into a pit. So my predictions have been a lot like the local elections overall, really. A bit mixed. Some successes, some failures, depending where you look. Let's refresh this again, see if we've got any more. No, of course not. New one from Britain Elects. Tweet. East Barnet result. Labour hold times 2. Conservative gain from Labour 1. Hang on a minute. I thought we'd heard about Barnet already. I swear we've got the results from Barnet in. We know that it's staying Tory. I guess maybe we know it's staying Tory, but we still don't even have all the wards in, but just the mathematics of it, we know it's staying Tory. That could be a possibility, but I'm sure we found that out like for a fact much, much earlier on. I mean, the BBC Council tracker says it happened. And, you know, the B Council tracker doesn't do shit unless they're absolutely certain. Is there any more in here? No, again, all of these. Brent? Have we looked at Brent yet? Labour +4, Tories -3, Lib Dems -1. Oh. Wow. So, how are we on with that one? Yeah, Barnet con gain from no overall control. Oh, there's one. Frank says, talking about anti-Semitism, between the media and Corbyn's perceived slow response, it's not a good look, regardless of the actual numbers of anti-Semites in the Labour Party. I agree with you there. The number of anti-Semites in the Labour Party, the number of cases being investigated, the number of candidates that have been suspended, or whatever, it's astronomically small compared to the size of the Labour Party. But nonetheless, yeah. Media perception, that's a big aspect. And certainly Corbyn's speed of acting, that is a factor as well. There have at least been a few cases where it's like, yeah, that person probably should have been permanently booted out of the Labour Party and they've somehow been allowed back in. So something's gone wrong there. This is the thing, to say there's no problem whatsoever, obviously that's turning a blind eye to things, but to try and paint it as, you know, what we're seeing, which is, you know, an anti-Semitic hotbed, epidemic, pandemic, whatever the word is, I'm forgetting what they are now, but, you know, that kind of thing, that's a bit far-fetched. But, you know, the coverage has been what it is. Let's just hope at this point, at the very least, after these locals, there's just, you know, there's a zero tolerance policy on anti-Semitism. the entire house is able to get in order. We can get the Blairites off our back about it. But hopefully along the way, we don't end up conflating criticism of Israel with anti-Semitism, because that would be kind of a rejection of values at the same time as well. Can something be astronomically small? I'd say so, yeah. If something could be astronomically large, like a planet or a solar system, something can be astronomically small, like a golf ball 5 light years away. Bemused one says, you know someone is going to blame the Jews for losing Barnet, so it's not going away. Yes, there are totally going to be people out there who are going to say that. And probably not even deliberately anti-Semitically, but just with a rather unguarded turn of phrase of how they choose to like analyze what they've seen. They'll be like, oh, it was those bloody Jews. And then they'll get in trouble for that. Christ, someone can chop that up out of my stream if they really like. Which would be unwise. Yeah, I'd advise all, you know, Labour supporting comrades out there, if you're going to be speaking about Barnet, you know, just maintain some sensitivity with it. You know, this isn't a blame game. People are voting for the parties that they choose to vote for here. I'll give this a refresh again. Oh, no difference. Nothing going on. Man, I think, I swear in the space of the last hour, we've had, I don't know, 20 councillors come in, something along those lines, maybe. Is there anything going on right now anywhere? Westminster City Council. I know we saw that one there. May the 4th be with you. Oh, was it Star Wars Day? Oh, of course, yeah. May the 4th. Ha ha ha. Any news on Runnymede and Angels, says Philip Mason? No, I'm afraid not. I'm sure that the moment Angels heard anything, she would be messaging me on Twitter about it and getting in touch. As far as we're aware on that front, Runnymede is going to be one of those places that the count is only going to be started. You know, the count probably won't even be started for another hour or two at the very least. So sadly, no news on that at the moment. What am I doing here? Am I just scrolling through Twitter? Right, I'm not going to do that. Let's give this a refresh again. No, still nothing to say. So, I hope you lot out there who've had a nice sleep, you're nice and well rested, because I'm feeling a bit worn. Are we supposed to be getting more suddenly, like a load of new results coming in at 9 in the morning? Had someone said something like that a little like 4 hours ago or something, that 9 a.m. was supposed to be when a load of new results were going to come in, or something along those lines? Because if we're going to start getting more stuff to look at like fairly soon, then I can keep going. I can keep going to see how things pan out. But if it's the case that there's going to be like no action for, I don't know, another 2 or 3 hours, then it makes a lot more sense for me to go sleep, either for a long time or at least for a little nap and then come back later on. Cameron Hickman says we should be getting the mayoral elections around then. I'm assuming that's 9 o'clock. I hope. Between 9 and 1 p.m, says Cameron Hickman. All right then. Well, what we'll do, let's see. It's 10 to 9 at the moment. No new results. Surprise, surprise. Oh, I'll stay up for like another. People are telling me to go to sleep. People are telling me to take a nap. Maybe that'd be wise. I want to hold on in case something interesting happens, but I strongly suspect we're going to be waiting a long time until something happens. Sky Sources, former England and Liverpool captain Steven Gerrard has agreed a deal to become the next manager of Rangers. There we are. Some news there for you folks. Astrofast, hey Cap, I'm going to go to bed. I thank you for your commentary and chat. Lots of fun. Cheers. I'm glad you've enjoyed it, man. Have a good sleep. Stay up to see the Bromley fall, says Bemused One. Laura Koonsberg says Labour MPs are not happy. Of course, you know this is what we're going to be enjoying for that. This is why, when the results are all said and done, Labour need to have, really, in order to stave off the usual suspects causing problems, they need to be neutral or up on councils, and they need to be up on councillors by, I mean, ideally like 100, but that's maybe not achievable at this point. At least 50. At least 50, getting as high up to 100 as you want. Then as Corbyn, as Labour, you can stand by the result and say, no, hang on. We may not have done as good as everyone was saying we were going to do, but we still had a pretty good result. We still did better than the previous runs of local elections. We still built on doing fairly good in 2014. That needs to be able to happen, to tell the Amunas and the everyone else. I'm not going to list off all the Labour MPs I don't like. It'll take too long. It's been excellent commentary from Swiss on his Lonesome 2. Well done, says Philip Mason. Thank you very much. I see there's people debating about anti-Semitism and the anti-Semitism mural at the moment. I'm not getting into all that at the moment. I've done enough on all that. Let's. Frank says, would it be faster to list the ones you do like, Swiss, as far as Labour MPs? Yeah, it probably would be quicker, actually. Probably would be quicker. I could give you a bit of a little bit of Jezza, a little bit of Bazza. Emily Thornberry's right, I suppose. Yeah, she's not bad. Skinner, old man Skinner, with his comments in whenever Blackford comes in, that kind of stuff. Let me see. I mean, most of, well, not most of. I'd say like maybe, I don't know. There's a few people in the Labour shadow cabinet that I kind of point to, and I'm like, yeah, they're pretty all right. I think they're good. And then there's others who are just like, well, they're on side. I don't think they're great, but you know, at least they're doing their bit. If you're doing your bit, then you're in my good books, at least, even if I don't think you're very good at doing your bit. Like, oh, I forget his name. Andrew Gwynn, something like that. The one with the glasses and the sort of the David Brent goatee. I think that's what he looks like. You guys, he does media appearances. He's on like Mar and all sorts of other stuff. What's he? The Shadow Community Secretary. That's who he is. I think he's a wet paper potato sack, or some better metaphor I can't think of at the moment. I don't think much of him, to be honest. But that's an example of a person, as I was about to say, who's he's doing his bit though. He's on side. He'd do a lot better if he kind of showed some flair and personality and didn't stick to the bloody script all the time. That's what I hate in politicians. But at least he's not Blair. You know, if you're not Blair, you're not too bad in my books. Maybe a wet paper potato sack. Is that what I said? You're repeating that in the side chat, something like that. No, there's no new councillors there. Is it time to call it a day? I think it's probably time to call it a day. We've given it the best go we can here. I'm going to sleep for a long old time today, and it's going to be absolutely marvelous. And then when I wake up, I don't know. I might do something fun. I'll be doing like I'll do like a video or a stream at some point in the next few days to kind of like cap what the results of the locals have been, kind of to give my final thoughts once all of the results are in, for that matter as well. For people who want to know how things will go for Angels, once we end up hearing back from Runnymede, on Twitter, me on Twitter, Angels on Twitter, follow. I can't do words now. Follow, and you'll be able to find out fairly soon. And yeah, I think that's probably it then. Ideally, I would have liked to have stayed up for the whole thing. I'm not prepared with enough caffeine around me and the rest of it, and it's their fault. If the counts had been done quicker, if they hadn't left so many of them to Friday, then we'd be here in one go. But you know what the BBC's trick is? The BBC starts off with one presenter and they do like an 8-hour shift, and then they move over to another one. You start with Dimbleby or Andrew Neil, and then you get Hugh Edwards halfway through the morning or something like that. It's all Swiss. Yeah. Right, I'm actually closing the tabs I'm looking at here because I keep going back thinking if I refresh it one more time, maybe there'll be something to talk about, but there won't be. I think we're done for today, aren't we? Oh, anyway, it's been fun, guys. To you lot who've joined me all the way through this, then congratulations. You've done a marathon along with me. I hope it's been worthwhile and we've had some fun doing the election coverage here. And to the rest of you, thank you for joining as well, for that matter. It's been a lot of fun. Probably no more that I need to say on all the parties and my expectations. I think I've repeated myself about 3,000 times at this point. So I'll just leave it at that for the time being. It's been a lot of fun. I really enjoy doing these election streams. So whenever the next one crops up, whether it'll be sooner rather than later, I'll be back again with one of those as well. So catch you all later on.